The modern man is proud of his freedom. He believes he can choose, decide, and live however he wants. But let me ask you something. Is he really free? Never in human history have we had so much access to pleasure. We can eat food that tastes good but slowly destroys us. We can scroll endlessly through entertainment that numbs the mind. We can get a rush of dopamine every time someone likes our post. And yet, despite all of this, we've never been so tired, so depressed, so easily controlled. What happened to us? The writer Aldous Huxley predicted this world almost a century ago in his book Brave New World. He imagined a society where pleasure isn't a luxury, it's a tool of control. A world where people don't need to be forced into obedience because they're too busy being comfortable, too addicted to pleasure to even care that they've become slaves. Huxley said something chilling. A truly efficient state makes its slaves love their servitude. The truth is, the enemy doesn't need to lock us in iron cages anymore. They found a better way, by keeping us entertained. The philosopher Herbert Marcuse in One-Dimensional Man explained how modern capitalism has erased rebellion, how it has turned pleasure into a predictable, industrialized product. Entertainment isn't just a distraction, it reshapes how we think and feel. It gives us quick, effortless joy that dissolves the will to question or change anything. Look around. People live in tiny apartments, disconnected from nature, hypnotized by endless series and short videos. They spend their last bit of money on addictive food, fleeting fashion trends, and digital distractions carefully designed to keep them busy but never fulfilled. The promise of endless pleasure has created a society of anxious, insecure, exhausted people. Neil Postman, in Amusing Ourselves to Death, saw this coming too. He wrote that modern information doesn't aim to educate or liberate. It only seeks to entertain. News has become spectacle. Politics has turned into a reality show. Real tragedies are packaged with background music and catchy slogans, so the audience keeps watching, but never truly feels the pain. And what happens when everything turns into entertainment? The truth loses its power. Critical thinking dies. People stop seeing the harsh reality of their lives because they're too busy chasing another tiny hit of pleasure. In ancient Rome, the emperors kept people obedient with bread and circuses. Feed them and entertain them, and they won't revolt. Today, our version is fast food and social media. Different tools, same principle. A population that's entertained doesn't question anything. But the cost is enormous. The Roman Empire began to collapse when its people cared only for comfort and entertainment. They lost their strength, their unity, their will to fight. Sound familiar? We're walking the same path. We want to be entertained to death. And who could blame us? Pleasure feels good. It soothes us. It gives us relief from the brutality of life. But here's the trap, one so subtle that most never see it until it's too late. When pleasure is controlled by external forces, it stops being a gift and becomes a chain. Think about it. Have your desires changed over the years? Things you once thought were unnecessary now feel essential. Who taught you to want the things you want? Huxley's Brave New World showed a society where people were conditioned from birth to seek pleasure and avoid discomfort at any cost. Babies were raised to love their servitude, not through fear, but through pleasure. Doesn't that sound familiar? From childhood, we are trained to respond to pleasure. Candy as a reward, bright cartoons that keep us glued to screens, games that drip-feed dopamine. As we grow up, this conditioning evolves. Social media replaces real friendships. Porn replaces intimacy. Junk food replaces nourishment. Drugs replace purpose. Artificial pleasure becomes anesthesia for the soul. And the worst part? The more you consume, the more you need. And the more you need, the less free you become. Marcuse saw this too. He said that we live in a world that pretends to offer choices. We can pick between thousands of movies, clothing styles, exotic foods, political ideologies, but all of these choices follow the same rule. Keep you comfortable enough to never question the system. How many times have you spent hours scrolling for a movie to watch, only to realize they all feel the same? That's not an accident, it's design. False diversity hides real conformity. Neil Postman pointed out something terrifying. The real danger isn't censorship, it's drowning in noise. Instead of banning books, they flood us with triviality. Instead of silencing ideas, they bombard us with meaningless debates and fake scandals. Remember the Facebook scandal in 2018? It revealed that the platform was literally manipulating users' emotions to increase engagement. They know exactly what gives us pleasure and how to use it against us. So let me ask, imagine two people. The first is locked in a cell, tortured, isolated from the world. The second lives in a nice apartment with food delivered to their door, a big TV, and a phone full of apps. Who is freer? Most people would say the second person. But what if that person never feels the need to leave? Never realizes they're being controlled? Are they truly free? Or just a well-fed prisoner? That's our world today. Most people don't realize they're trapped because their prison is made of pleasure. And what happens when pleasure becomes the only purpose of life? When comfort replaces courage? When distraction replaces meaning? What's left of a civilization when its people no longer fight for anything, believe in anything, or feel anything beyond the need for another hit of stimulation? Marcuse had a term for this: repressive desublimation, a complex phrase for a simple truth. The system gives us just enough pleasure to prevent us from wanting anything greater. It keeps us tame. Apathy doesn't happen overnight. It begins quietly, with small habits. We choose the easier path. We avoid discomfort. Slowly, we start to care less about what truly matters. Huxley understood it perfectly. He wrote, "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." But how can we stay vigilant when we're too busy chasing the next distraction? Today, entertainment is endless. The moment something disturbs us, we switch tabs, play another show, scroll for something happier. And the result? A society emotionally paralyzed, where no one cares enough to fight for change. We live in a world where everything is designed to give us pleasure. Every app, every show, every snack, every like is engineered to keep us hooked, to keep us feeling good, but without making us think. And the problem is, the more pleasure we consume, the less real joy we experience. Pleasure, once a simple, healthy part of life, becomes a trap that feeds on itself. What's worse, the pleasure we're chasing isn't even real. It's artificial. It's been crafted by companies and governments to make us easy to control. This is where the danger lies. Pleasure, when given to us in an endless stream, doesn't allow us to experience the deep, meaningful emotions that make us human. Instead, it numbs us. It creates a society of people who feel a constant low-level anxiety but don't know why. People who feel exhausted but don't know how to rest. People who feel empty but don't know how to fill the void. The pleasure we seek is like a drug. The first hit is exciting, new, and exhilarating, but over time, it doesn't feel as good. So we need more. We need a bigger dose. We need the next high. And before we know it, we've become dependent. Dependence on pleasure doesn't just mean we want more, it means we lose our ability to do anything without it. We can't sit still without scrolling. We can't eat a meal without a snack afterward. We can't go to bed without a TV show or a game. We can't talk to people without constantly checking our phones. We've become slaves to our own desire for more, and as we sink deeper into this cycle, we lose our ability to think for ourselves. The philosopher Herbert Marcuse saw this long ago. He called it the one-dimensional man, a person who can't see beyond the surface level of their existence because they're constantly distracted by the superficial pleasures that society offers. They don't see the big picture. They don't question the system. They just go along with it because they're comfortable. But comfort isn't freedom, it's captivity. Huxley and Marcuse both knew this. They saw that when we become obsessed with pleasure, we stop seeing the world as it truly is. We stop noticing the cracks in our society, the injustice, the inequality. All of that fades away because we're too busy focusing on our next instant gratification. This is where the modern world has taken us. We're so addicted to our pleasures, so lost in the convenience of modern life, that we can't see the damage it's doing to us. Our minds are weak, our bodies are drained, and our spirits are hollow. We've become so numb to the world that we don't feel anything anymore. Not deeply, not truly. We feel a little bit of joy here and there, but it doesn't last. And the worst part is we don't even know it's happening. Most of us don't realize how much we've changed, how much we've been manipulated. We think we're in control, but we're not. We're being controlled by forces we can't see, forces that are using pleasure to keep us in line. The entertainment industry, the food industry, the tech industry, they all know exactly how to exploit our desires. They know how to give us just enough to keep us coming back for more. And they know that the more we get, the less satisfied we feel. It's a cycle that keeps us trapped in a constant state of longing, of needing more. We think we're free because we have choices, but those choices are just illusions. They give us the false sense that we're in control, that we're making decisions, when in reality, all our choices are leading us down the same path. The path to numbness, to apathy, to emptiness. And this is the core of the problem. The pleasure trap is so powerful because it makes us feel like we're living. It tricks us into believing that we're having fun, that we're enjoying life, when in reality, we're wasting it. We're wasting our time, our energy, and our potential, all in the pursuit of hollow pleasures that don't fulfill us. So how do we break free from this cycle? How do we reclaim our freedom? It starts by recognizing the trap for what it is. We need to see that the pleasure we're chasing isn't real, that it's not making us happier, and that it's only making us weaker. We need to stop feeding the system that's controlling us. We need to stop believing that more pleasure equals more happiness, because it doesn't. The real challenge is finding joy and fulfillment in something deeper, something that doesn't come from external sources, something that isn't designed to keep us coming back for more. Real happiness comes from within. It comes from facing the pain, the discomfort, the challenges of life head-on, instead of running from them. It comes from doing things that require effort, sacrifice, and growth. It comes from building something real, something meaningful. We can't find true happiness if we're constantly running from discomfort. And that's exactly what the pleasure trap does. It makes us run from the discomfort of life, and in doing so, it steals our ability to truly live. The choice is simple. We can continue to chase hollow pleasures, or we can start seeking something deeper. We can continue to numb ourselves, or we can face the pain and discomfort that come with growth. It's up to us. But the longer we stay in the trap, the harder it becomes to break free. So the question is, how long are we willing to stay in the cage of pleasure, pretending we're free? How long before we realize that the freedom we think we have is just another illusion? When pleasure becomes the only goal, meaning disappears. What happens to a civilization when people stop fighting for something greater than themselves? When they stop believing in anything deeper than comfort? It dies, not suddenly, but slowly, from the inside out. This is what Herbert Marcuse warned us about. He saw how modern systems give us just enough satisfaction to keep us from rebelling. They fill our lives with small, easy pleasures so that we never look up and realize we're being controlled. He called it repressive desublimation, a fancy term for a simple reality. Our pleasures keep us weak. When every desire is fulfilled instantly, we lose the ability to desire anything meaningful. We no longer chase ideals, dreams, or purpose. We just chase the next distraction. Apathy doesn't happen overnight. It starts small, by always choosing the easy way, avoiding discomfort, avoiding pain. Over time, this avoidance becomes our default way of living. We stop caring about truth, about justice, about anything that requires effort. Aldous Huxley said, "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." But how can we stay vigilant when we're constantly entertained? When every moment of silence is filled with noise, every ounce of boredom replaced with stimulation, every thought interrupted by a notification? Today, if something disturbs us, we don't face it. We just escape. We change the channel, open another app, start another episode. Discomfort has become intolerable, and because of that, we've lost the ability to grow. We've created a society where nobody feels enough to fight. We've built a world so full of distraction that no one can stay still long enough to think deeply. And when people stop thinking, truth dies. Neil Postman saw this clearly. He said the danger isn't that a dictator will burn books. It's that people will stop reading them. They won't need censorship if no one cares about truth anymore. They'll just drown us in entertainment until we stop noticing reality. Think about it. When politics becomes a show, when suffering is packaged as content, when every tragedy becomes just another trending topic, how can we still feel empathy? We don't cry anymore, we scroll. We don't act, we react. The world turns into noise, and truth disappears into the static. This is how control works now, not through violence or fear, but through pleasure and distraction. The system doesn't need to silence us, it just needs to keep us entertained. Look at what's already happening. In China, the social credit system rewards people for being obedient. Those who follow the rules, stay quiet, and live peacefully get access to better jobs, travel, and comfort. Those who question authority lose points, lose opportunities, and eventually lose their place in society. It's the perfect modern control system. They don't have to punish rebellion, they just make obedience more pleasurable. And it's not just China. The same mechanism exists everywhere in softer forms. We are rewarded for compliance, comforted when we consume, and quietly punished when we resist. The message is clear. Obey and you'll be happy. Disobey and life becomes uncomfortable. That's the trade we've accepted. Freedom for convenience, truth for entertainment, meaning for pleasure. History is full of warnings about this. The Roman Empire collapsed when its people cared more about games than governance. The Mayans declined when luxury and excess replaced discipline and unity. Civilizations rot when comfort becomes their god. And we are no different. We think our technology, our wealth, and our modernity make us stronger, but they've only made us softer. Our leaders drown in luxury while the masses drown in distractions. Both sides are lost, one in greed, the other in pleasure, and neither sees the fall coming. This is the great irony of our time. We have more of everything, but we've never felt less alive. We've replaced purpose with comfort, meaning with pleasure, struggle with sedation, and it's killing us slowly. Huxley's world in Brave New World wasn't one of fear and violence. It was one of comfort and emptiness. People didn't need to be forced to obey. They wanted to obey because it was easier. They had everything, except a reason to live. Look around. How many people stay in miserable jobs just because it pays enough to afford small pleasures? How many distract themselves with endless scrolling, junk food, or superficial relationships just to avoid facing their emptiness? How many trade freedom for the illusion of happiness? That's the real prison, the one you don't see because it feels good. Marcuse said that the real power of modern control isn't repression, it's seduction. The system doesn't scare you into submission, it seduces you. It gives you comfort, ease, pleasure, and tells you that's enough. And most people believe it. Ask yourself, when was the last time you faced real struggle? When was the last time you pushed beyond your comfort zone? When was the last time you did something difficult just because it mattered? Pain isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. Growth requires struggle. Virtue requires sacrifice. Strength comes only through challenge. But we've built a world that avoids all of it. We've traded resilience for comfort, courage for convenience, depth for dopamine. The result? A civilization of emotional infants, people who can't handle pain, who can't handle boredom, who can't handle truth. We're surrounded by more knowledge than ever, yet we've never been so blind. We have more connections than ever, yet we've never been so lonely. We have more comfort than ever, yet we've never been so restless. Neil Postman said that the future wouldn't be a world where books are banned, but a world where no one wants to read them. He was right. We're not oppressed by force, we're smothered by entertainment. Every moment we spend chasing pleasure is a moment we lose to apathy. Every time we avoid discomfort, we lose a little of our humanity. Every time we choose distraction over depth, we forget who we are. And if this continues, there won't be anything left to fight for. When a civilization loses meaning, it doesn't collapse with explosions or war. It fades quietly. People stop caring. They stop dreaming. They stop resisting. It dies not from violence, but from apathy. Nietzsche warned us about this. He said that when a society loses faith in its higher values, it falls into nihilism, the belief that nothing matters. And once people believe that, they become easy to control, because someone who believes in nothing will obey anything. That's where we are now. We don't live in a world of belief anymore. We live in a world of distraction. The gods we once prayed to have been replaced by screens, algorithms, and desires. Instead of priests, we have influencers. Instead of truth, we have opinions. Instead of meaning, we have content. And behind it all, the machine keeps running, feeding on our attention, our time, our lives. We think we're free because we can choose between brands, between apps, between identities. But all our choices lead to the same place: obedience through pleasure. We've become what Gita Board called spectators of our own lives. We don't live anymore, we watch ourselves living. Everything is performance. Everything is aesthetic. We build identities to impress strangers we'll never meet. We speak not to connect, but to be seen. And the more we perform, the less we feel. We've replaced being with appearing, truth with image, life with simulation. This is the hyper-reality that Baudrillard described, a world where the copy becomes more real than the original, a world where we consume images of happiness instead of living it. We see love on screens and call it romance. We see rebellion in ads and call it freedom. We see meaning in consumption and call it purpose. And yet deep down, everyone feels the same emptiness, the silence between the noise, the weight of nothing, the quiet realization that all this progress has not made us whole. The human spirit is starving not for comfort, but for depth. We crave meaning, not more pleasure. We crave connection, not more followers. But the system doesn't give us those things. It gives us substitutes, cheap imitations that keep us busy but never fulfilled. That's how control survives, not through force, but through simulation. Think of it this way: the old tyrants used whips and chains. The new ones used dopamine and data. The old systems demanded obedience. The new ones make obedience feel good. That's why most people will never rebel. They don't feel like prisoners. They feel entertained. The cage is invisible because it's made of comfort. So what can be done? How do you escape a world designed to keep you asleep? The answer is both terrifying and simple. You wake up. You stop running from discomfort. You stop seeking constant pleasure. You stop obeying your impulses like they're gods. You learn to sit in silence, to feel deeply, to question everything. You become aware of how much of your life is being traded for convenience. You realize that meaning is not given, it's created. It comes from struggle, from choice, from sacrifice. Freedom isn't easy. It's not comfortable. It's not pleasurable. It's painful. It demands that you look directly at the truth, even when it hurts. It demands that you confront yourself, your fears, your illusions. It demands that you reject the comfort that keeps you compliant. Most won't do it. Most will stay asleep scrolling until the end. But a few will wake up. A few will see that the system can only control what it can seduce. And the moment you stop craving its pleasures, you take back your power. That's the rebellion. Not against governments or corporations, but against the part of you that prefers comfort over truth. You can't destroy the system by fighting it directly. You destroy it by making it irrelevant, by becoming the kind of person who can't be bought, distracted, or controlled. The kind of person who doesn't need the illusion to feel alive. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Find your why, not a borrowed one, not a marketed one, your own. Something so real that no system can take it from you. That's where freedom begins, not in politics, not in ideology, but in the mind of an individual who refuses to be numb. The real apocalypse isn't coming from outside. It's already here, inside us. It's the slow death of meaning, the decay of truth, the silence of people who no longer believe in anything. But if meaning can die, it can also be reborn. And maybe that's the point of all this. Maybe the collapse is necessary. Maybe humanity must lose everything fake before it can rediscover what's real. The end of illusion might be the beginning of truth. And when that happens, when enough people stop chasing pleasure and start seeking purpose, the system will fall. Not with violence, not with revolution, but with silence. Because once you stop believing in the illusion, it loses its power. The quiet apocalypse isn't the end of humanity. It's the end of the lie. And what comes after that, whatever survives the collapse, will finally be free.